get started. First thing, Greenie, I just want to let you know, I got my flip phone, and I know when 8 minutes are up. Just want to let you know, this is the only phone I've ever used before. So I know, okay. I just want to thank everybody for having me here. I was coming up from Atlanta, Georgia, and Atlanta is it's pretty warm right now, and it's a little chilly out there now, but I have met so many wonderful people up around this area, and I've seen so many of my friends who I started my career with. Tony Morante. Tony, we started together, big guy. Just want to let you know. Ray Negron came to the Yankees in, what year was it? I forgot.
73.
In 73. Came to us in 73. If George Steinbrenner did not take him off the streets, I don't know, he would probably be some other place like Alcatraz, or he would be in some type of gang, and you would see him all across the papers across the country. But the first time he came into Yankee Stadium, I felt so sorry for him. And I remember this Puerto Rican kid coming in, right? And I'm a Jewish kid on the corner, right next to Thurman Munson and Bobby Mercer. And this guy comes in, and we looked at this guy and we said, this guy looks a little flimsy, you know? So the first thing I said to all my teammates, remember Ray? I said, you better put up all your gloves and all your bats, because they might not be here after we take batting practice. This guy might be selling them out on Jerome Avenue. You have no idea. You have no idea. Let me tell you something. I was very lucky in my life. I came from nothing. My parents had nothing, okay? And I remember coming from the South. When I was growing up, I grew up with so many of the KKKs and the John Birch Society. And this is really true. And half my teammates in Georgia, I don't know if anybody ever seen Mississippi Burning. This is how we were when we were growing up. And half of my teammates, when I was playing baseball, basketball, or football, after we had games, they would go to a place, I don't know if anybody ever been to Atlanta before, it was a place called Stone Mountain, and that's where they had their cross burnings. And half my teammates had their hoods and their robes in their cars. And people didn't realize that I really came from a tough place. But I was very lucky in my life that I became a pretty decent athlete when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I started, I was listening to some of your coaches, and they started, and one of the coaches around here, I don't know anybody's names. If I ever call you Big Guy, that's your name. I call everybody Big Guy. All my people on my Facebook, I call people Big Guy. And I can't lose. So that's what I do. But when I started baseball, the first time I went out for the team, a Sally League team, back down in Georgia, in the early 60s, I remember I got released from a Sally League team. I did not have shoes. I did not have tennis shoes. I got tennis shoes now, so I make sure I wear them. So I love them. I don't like these other shoes. But anyway, I was very, very lucky in my life that I started increasing and started getting pretty good in athletics. And I remember the first time I started playing basketball. That was my first sport, was basketball. Now here's a little white kid playing basketball, and I started dunking when I was 11 years old, okay? And you know, I had no idea what basketball was, to be honest with you. I remember one of my coaches asked me, could I jump? And I said, I never tried it before. So I went, I'll never forget when I went to center court, I started jumping, and when I tried to jump, I went out like this rather than jumping straight up. But he said, okay, now what I'd like for you to do is to stand still and jump and try to touch the net. That was easy. I was 11 years old. And he said, can you touch the rim? I touched the rim. And I've never forgot that I started improving in athletics. And I was very lucky in my life. When I got drafted by the New York Yankees in 1967, and I was the #1 draft choice in the country. And I remember getting recruited, getting scouted. I don't know if you ever remember the second baseman for the Yankees, Bobby Richardson. And he was my first scout that came to me when I was in the 8th grade in high school, okay? And he started looking at me. But I was playing baseball and basketball then. And then when I started improving in my athletic career, I remember when I was a senior in high school, I signed a letter of intent in 1967 to go to UCLA and play basketball with John Wooten. I remember when he came out to my school, I signed what they call a letter of intent. Back then, when you signed a letter of intent, you had to play for that school. If you played for, well, if you played for that school, okay. And then Bear Bryant came when I was a senior, and I signed a letter of intent to play football for University of Alabama. But I knew probably about 6 months before the draft, it was June the 6th, I believe, the draft was. And the Yankees, I remember Howard Burke, Michael Burke, Johnny Johnson, and Lee McPhail. I don't know if you ever remember those names. And I know Tony remember those names. I know that Ray Negron remember those names. And they drafted me #1 in the country. I was the luckiest man in the whole world to get drafted by the New York Yankees and to put on that Yankee pinstripes and to be able to go out to Yankee Stadium when I was 17 years old, and I'd never been on an airplane ever before in my whole life, ever. My parents had no money. We couldn't fly up here, and I'm never going to forget when I got up to Yankee Stadium, when I flew up there on a Piedmont Airlines. I went to the Hilton on 7th, I think it was Lexington, and it was a big sign, "Welcome New York Yankees, Ron Bloomberg." And that was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. And then I went to Yankee Stadium, okay? And I went to, my first interview was with Bill White, Frank Messer, Phil Rizzuto, and the guest was Walter Cronkite. And that was and at that time there was about 4,000 people in Yankee Stadium. There was hardly anybody in Yankee Stadium. But I remember signing my contract, and I remember the first place that the Yankees took me to, they took me to see a Fiddler on the Roof, Zero Mostel. I went back in the back. And then we went to a place, I don't know if you remember this, Toots Shores. I don't know if you remember that. And then they had to take me, being Jewish, taking me to a deli, in the Stage Deli in the Carnegie, and the first thing they did was had a sandwich named after me. So I knew I was in the right place. But let me tell you something. I was very lucky to be able to play with the greatest teams and to be able to meet friends like Bucky Dent, like Louis Tiant. Louis, you walked me with the bases loaded, big guy. I screwed up. In 1973, I screwed up the game of baseball. But thank you very much, Louis. Thank you, big guy. Thank you. Whoever thought that the DH, the designated hitter, was going to be 50 years next year? Whoever thought that? Everybody. You ask Bucky, you ask Jack McKeon, everybody thought it was just basically a pinch hitter, just a novelty. I did. I never thought it was going to be in existence. Now it's 50 years later. And you look at all the great ball players that played it. Aaron Judge, who was injured. Stanton, Derek Jeter, all these guys was a DH at one time. But I have had so much fun with I wrote a book, and I was very, very lucky. I wrote a book, it was called The Designated Hebrew, okay? And it was. And the funny story, how much more time do I have, Randy? Okay, I got a few more minutes, okay. But my flip phone did not ring. If you hear it ring, I'll sit down. But anyway, I'll never forget, I was in Old Timers Day. I'm sitting down right next to Joe DiMaggio, right next to Joe D. I'm talking to Joe. We're having a nice little conversation, and he's prim and proper. He wouldn't put on a uniform, of course, because his hair was messy. He just looked like a gentleman. I mean, he looked wonderful. And I'll never forget that Dick Schaap and Jeremy Schaap walked past me. And Dick said, "Bloomy," they always call me Bloomy. They said, "First DH." And I looked at him. I said, "Designated Hebrew," like that. And he said, "You got to write a book." And I wrote a book. And it was 2007, and we sold almost 25,000 copies of the book. Thank you. If y'all got a book. But anyway, but the greatest ball player, and I wrote a book in 2021. It was called Captain and Me. I don't know if you have looked at it, but it was a #1 on the Wall Street, and it was in the top 25 on the New York Times. And to this day, it's still in the top 100. And it was about one of my closest and dearest friends, Thurman Munson. I played with Thurman, and Louis would tell you that he's pitched to so many good catchers, but he would tell you that Thurman probably was maybe the best catcher that he's ever pitched to. And if you ask Bucky, if you ask about a guy that should be, I'm just telling you, any really Hall of Famers up in Cooperstown, and I go up there all the time to sign and to do my deal up there, he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And, and I'm not here to publicize him, but I am. But he needs to be in it. And I know Rini is doing everything he possibly can to get him into the Hall of Fame. And people did not realize, and Tony worked with him, Moranti, for probably many years, and he was a tough guy. He was a very, very tough guy, but he was a teddy bear. He came up in '68. He was a #1 draft choice out of Kent State University. He was a catcher. He was a little bit older than I was. I was 17 when I was drafted. He was, I believe, 21, I believe. And you knew right off the bat what type of person he was. He was a go-getter. He was a type of guy that wouldn't shave. He wouldn't change his clothes. He was a gritty guy. But he was a leader. He was a guy that was just like George Patton. And if you're in a war, he was a guy that you will look at. And this is a guy that was so impressive. And if he said something to you, you do it. I mean, that's the type of person he was. And one thing he did, he hated Carlton Fisk. I just want to let you know that he hated Fisk. Because Fisk, how in the world did Fisk get in and Thurman never got in? I had no idea. But anyway, when I wrote my book, it was really fun. I had Diana Munson. She was doing the forward of the book. The book did extremely well. I just found out we sold close to 40,000 copies of the book in a year, and I made no money. I don't know how authors make any money. Believe me, I have no idea how they make money. But anyway, being a professional ball player, doing something what I wanted to do, and to be able to play with the greatest team in the world, and to be able to see Nancy Newman at Yankee Stadium all the time, and to see John Sterling and Michael Kay and Paul, all those guys, the Yankees are the #1 organization in the game of baseball. And I'm just telling you right now, And I'm no Nancy for you. Oh, I gotta get off it, right? But anyway, I'm gonna get off. Hey, but thank y'all very much for having me. It's an honor. Rini, if you ever need some help again, don't call me. But he called me up a lot. But anyway, I love you. I love y'all all. Thanks. And one more thing. I'm not, wait. I'm not, wait. Y'all are the heroes of the game. I'm just telling you. I lived my fantasy. I did something what I wanted to do. Y'all are the heroes. Y'all are the people that made the game of baseball great. I just want to let you know. I love y'all. I love New York. And I love the people of Detroit and Albany, New York. I love y'all.